What's up YouTube, Zero here, and today I have an extremely fun Snorlax EX, Arceus EX, and Crobat deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build that you can see on the left hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of these cards individually, and I'll also talk about why this deck is fun and does work pretty well. Before I get into it, I do want to say if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content. Thank you so much in advance for doing so. Believe it or not, 97% of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel. It does really help me out when you subscribe, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Without further ado, let's talk about this deck build, and I want to talk about Snorlax EX, a card just released with the Eevee Grove pack release. Snorlax has been a staple of Pokemon since Pokemon came out, just sleeping in a path that you needed to get by, so you had to find the Pokemon flute to wake it up and move it out of your path. Snorlax is very iconic, always sleeping, typically happy, but in this card, the Snorlax EX card, does not look very happy or even sleeping. He is ready to attack. Let's talk about Snorlax EX. First, let's talk about the move. For 4 colorless energy, so it is a lot of energy, flop down punch for 130 damage. However, Snorlax also puts itself to sleep. So you're doing 130 damage, it's 4 colorless energy, and you put yourself to sleep. Really not fantastic in terms of an attack. It can work, 130 is decent, but 4 energy is a very long time to build up energy. It can be put in a deck that ramps up energy a little bit quicker. Of course, being colorless, you can utilize Snorlax EX with Dialga, so it can ramp up energy that way. You can use it with Manaphy, so it can rank up energy that way. There are other Pokemon that you can pair with Snorlax EX so that it can ramp up energy if you want Snorlax EX to attack. Snorlax is a fantastic wall, though, to put in the active slot, and that's because of its ability. Not only does it have 160 HP, however, it also has full mouth manner. At the end of your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, heal 20 damage from it. So if you have Snorlax in the active slot, perhaps as a wall, or even if you're just ramping up energy on Snorlax, it's going to heal 20 HP if it has damage on it. So that's pretty decent. You can put Snorlax EX in the active slot and utilize it as a wall. It's part of the reason why I like this deck build, and I like to pair it with Arceus. So let's talk about Arceus. Arceus EX, a lot of you probably know about Arceus. Been in the game for a little while now in the Triumphant Light packs. It has its attack ultimate force for 3 colorless energy, deals 70 plus damage. This attack does 20 more damage for each of your benched Pokemon. So if you have a full bench, Arceus can deal up to 130 damage, which is fantastic for just 3 energy. We can compare the two Pokemon. Arceus, you have a full bench, you deal 130 damage. Snorlax, you just need 4 energy, however, you deal 130 damage, same as Arceus, and you also put yourself to sleep. So just comparing apples to apples, you can tell Snorlax is a little bit harder of a Pokemon to get online and really up to snuff. Arceus EX also has an ability. Arceus cannot be affected by any special conditions, so it is really nice. You're going to counter poison decks really well. There are a lot of poison decks out there that tried to bleed your health with poison. Arceus isn't going to allow that to happen. So what's nice about this combination is that either Pokemon can sit in that active slot to begin the match and act as your wall, so you can build up energy on your bench, and you can also get the cards you need into your hand so you can implement your strategy. And since I'm bringing that up, I want to talk about what the strategy is. So the strategy for this deck is pretty simple. Arceus EX or Snorlax EX in the active slot to start the match. These Pokemon are going to act as your wall. Get one of the other Pokemon on your bench, whether it's Arceus EX or Snorlax or one of their copies. Doesn't matter too much. So you put one in the active slot as your wall. You don't want to equip energy on it. You put the other on your bench. That's where you're going to start equipping your energy. You want to make sure that you get an Arceus EX on the playing field because you want to get Crobat on the playing field. Crobat has an ability where if Arceus EX or Arceus is in play, you can do 30 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So just having Arceus on the playing field and Crobat, you're going to be dealing 30 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So Snorlax EX or Arceus in the active slot, acting as a wall. On the bench, you want an Arceus EX and a Crobat. On top of that, I also have Shaman that I'll talk about in a second. But Shaman on the bench would be nice to heal up a little bit of extra damage. But you at least want a wall in that active slot, Arceus EX or Snorlax EX. Crobat on the bench, dealing that extra damage. And of course, you want Arceus on the playing field. And then either an Arceus EX or Snorlax on the bench so you can equip energy on it. Now, after that occurs, you utilize an Ilima once you're ready. Once your Pokemon on the bench is fully charged, you utilize an Ilima on your wall, pull it back into your hand, and then you can start attacking. But let's talk about all these cards, and then I'll talk about why this strategy is really good even more after I talk about more of these cards that I've just brought up. So let's talk about Crobat. Crobat, I already talked about its ability. As long as Arceus EX in this deck is on the playing field and Crobat is on the playing field, you can deal 30 damage to the active Pokemon every turn. So that's absolutely awesome. Crobat also has a move, Darkness Fang, for 1 Dark Energy, deals 50 damage. This deck is going to be run with Dark Energy, so Crobat can attack. If Crobat's in the active slot, it's absolutely phenomenal with Arceus on the playing field because you're dealing 80 damage. However, if another one of the Pokemon is in the active slot, your Arceus EX or Snorlax EX, and they're attacking, you can deal up to 160 damage. So that's pretty great as well. Crobat is going to be found in the Triumphant Light packs, just like our Arceus EX. Next, you do need a Zubat. There are multiple Zubats in the game. I have the one for 1 Dark Energy, bites your opponents, and that's going to be in the Triumphant Light packs. Next, let's talk about Shaman. Shaman is only in this deck for its ability, Fragrant Flower Garden. Fragrant Flower Garden. Once during your turn, you may heal 10 damage from each of your Pokemon. So this is great to couple with Snorlax, because if Snorlax is in that active slot acting as a wall, Snorlax heals itself for 20, Shaman can heal your Snorlax for 10. So each turn, if your Shaman's on the field and your Snorlax is on the field, you can heal up your Snorlax for 30 HP, which is really nice. It can heal up a lot of that chip damage that your opponent is trying to eat away at. So you can keep Snorlax EX on the battlefield a little bit longer so you can implement your strategy on the bench, which is really nice. The move doesn't matter because it requires a grass energy. I'm not running any grass energy in this deck, so the move is irrelevant. Shaman is only being used for the healing factor. Next, I have Rare Candy. Rare Candy is going to help get to Crobat. I don't have a Golbat in this deck. I'm only utilizing Rare Candy to evolve Crobat. So, for those of you who don't know, Rare Candy, you choose your basic Pokemon that's on the playing field. In this case, it's going to be Zubat. Zubat on the playing field as long as it's been there for 1 turn. If you have Rare Candy and Crobat in your hand, you can immediately evolve the Crobat, skipping the stage 1, which means you can skip Golbat in this case. Rare candy is going to be found in the Celestial Guardians packs. Then, of course, a couple of basic cards. Your Professor's Research, you draw 2 cards. Pokeball, you can put a basic Pokemon from your deck into your hand. Next, I have Pokemon Center Lady. Heal 30 damage and recover all special conditions from one of your Pokemon. This is going to be fantastic to keeping your wall alive a little bit longer. This is going to be found in the Shining Revelry pack. So if Snorlax EX is in that active slot, it heals itself 20, Shaman heals it 10, Pokemon Center Lady is going to heal it another 30. So that's 60 HP that you can recover on one turn. Again, allowing Snorlax to be that wall while you implement your strategy. And I do have 2 Pokemon Center Ladies in this deck, but you can kind of play with the number of trainer cards. You can see I have 1 Ilima, 1 Sabrina, and 1 Cyrus. But you can kind of play with those numbers to see what suits you best. I just found that this suited me a little bit better because I like keeping my wall alive. I only need 1 Ilima because hopefully I have my strategy implemented by the time it takes to pull back my wall. So let's talk about Ilima. I've brought her up a lot. Put one of your colorless Pokemon that has damage on it into your hand. That play is great to having a colorless wall, so either Arceus EX or Snorlax EX. One of those Pokemon in the active slot acting as a wall while you are equipping energy to one of your other powerful Pokemon on your bench, whether it's Arceus EX or Snorlax EX, and you're drawing cards from your deck, implementing your strategy. So it's absolutely phenomenal to have an Ilima. You pull back one of your colorless Pokemon, Snorlax EX or Arceus EX, into your hand. You heal it all, put it back on the playing field because it's a basic Pokemon, so you don't need to evolve. You put it back on the playing field into your bench. Allow the other Pokemon that you were building up energy on to start attacking, and you can start building up energy on that Pokemon that you just put into play. Of course, having Crobat in this deck is phenomenal because it only requires 1 energy. There's not much setup involved apart from just evolving it. So you evolve into Crobat and you can start dealing 50 damage. If you do have an Arceus EX on the playing field, you're going to be dealing 80 damage, which is absolutely phenomenal. Ilima can be found in the Celestial Guardians Lunala packs. Last but not least, a couple more supporter cards, Sabrina and Cyrus. 2 cards that I absolutely love. They're almost in every one of my decks. If you've been watching my videos previously, you'll know I utilize these cards a lot. I love these cards. They are phenomenal. Sabrina is great because it can get out a Pokemon in the active slot that you don't want there. It can throw off your opponent's strategy. It can potentially get to a Pokemon on the bench that you want in the active slot that you would prefer to attack. Of course, you utilize Sabrina and your opponent gets to choose the Pokemon on the bench that they want in that active slot. However, it is a great card to really disrupt your opponent's strategy or get to a Pokemon that you want in the active slot. Sabrina is going to be found in the Genetic Apex Charizard packs. Last but not least, Cyrus. Cyrus is phenomenal. Of course, you're going to be dealing chip damage with Crobat. Your opponent may not like that with the Pokemon in the active slot, so they may retreat the Pokemon in the active slot that has damage on it. Cyrus is going to allow you to grab that damaged Pokemon from the bench and put it back into the active slot. So I absolutely love Cyrus for that reason. It's great in this deck, and I have that in the Spacetime Smackdown Palkia packs. So just take a look at the numbers. I have 1 Ilima, 1 Sabrina, 1 Cyrus, and 1 Shaman. The rest of the cards in this deck I have 2 of. But this is an absolutely great way to utilize Snorlax EX, whether as a wall to set up a strategy on the bench, or you can utilize Arceus as your wall and set up a Pokemon on your bench, either another Snorlax EX or another Arceus. Of course, it is a great way to utilize a wall having Ilima. You typically don't like to have a wall that's an EX Pokemon because if it's taken down, you lose 2 points. However, utilizing Ilima, having a Pokemon that heals itself, such as Snorlax, and also Shaman to help with the healing, and Pokemon Center Lady to help with the healing, you're going to stay alive for a pretty long time. 160 HP is pretty good as well, because a lot of Pokemon aren't going to be able to take you out with one hit, or those that can are going to require a lot of build-up to do so. Of course, your Charizard EX, the original one with Crimson Storm that deals 200 damage can, but that requires a lot of build-up, and while your opponent's building up, you're going to be building up and setting up as well. So you want to set up your Arceus or another Snorlax, you can do so and get that Pokemon online before your opponent can get their Pokemon online. But I absolutely love Snorlax and Crobat and Arceus as a combination. This is a great way to utilize Snorlax as a wall or as something on the bench with another wall in the active slot. But if you want to utilize Snorlax EX, this is going to be one of the best ways to do it. I wouldn't say that this is the best deck. This is not meta breaking, but it is a fun deck to utilize. It can get you a decent amount of wins, and it's a great way to utilize Snorlax, Arceus, and Crobat. Crobat is a great support card as long as you pair it with Arceus because it's dealing that extra 30 damage. So it's absolutely phenomenal to use. Of course, like I said earlier, Crobat 30 damage added to Arceus 130 or Snorlax 130 is dealing 160 every turn, which is absolutely insane to be doing. Going to be taking out a lot of Pokemon with 160 damage every turn once you get that online. That's why having a wall there so you can implement that strategy is going to be crucial for this deck to getting it online. Let me know in the comments section what you think of this deck. Are you going to use something like it? Do you already use something like it? Are you a huge fan of Snorlax? Are you a huge fan of Arceus? Are you a huge fan of Crobat? Let me know in the comments section. Let me know a Pokemon that you want to see a deck built around. If there's a specific Pokemon that you want to see a deck built around, let me know in the comment section, and I will come out with a deck centered around that Pokemon. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Again, does really help me out and my channel continue to grow. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and until next time, peace.